Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm your host, Trudy Rankin. And in today's, I want to share with you my recent experiment with outsourcing some tasks to freelancers. And I was using the online labor platform Fiverr. So if you're a busy solopreneur who's never hired anyone on an online labor platform before, or if you've outsourced tasks before, but you've never used Fiverr, this episode may actually help you. Now, typically, when you want to hire somebody to do something for your business that you would normally do yourself, it's usually like one-off specialized tasks. For example, you might want them to design a landing page or a website for you, or you might want somebody who can do repetitive tasks that aren't in your area of genius. For example, for me anyway, that might include turning podcast transcripts into blog posts or coming up with SEO optimized ideas for blog posts. And you could probably come up with lots of your own ideas about the kinds of tasks you'd love to give somebody else to do. But here's a couple of other examples, or a few other examples. One of them might be social media management, where they're helping to manage your social media accounts, or they might be creating social media posts and graphics and all those sorts of things. It might involve video editing, especially if you want to have videos on your website, or you have a YouTube channel. You might want somebody to help you with that. You might need some help with virtual assistants, like managing your emails, scheduling appointments, or booking travels, all the sorts of things that what a PA might do or an EA might do in a corporate type role. Another place where somebody from an online labor platform like Fiverr could help is basically with content creation. It might be writing blog posts or writing product descriptions, all different kinds of things, anything to do with writing they can do. They can help with graphic design. They might be able to help you with translation services. For example, if you wanted to translate something you've gotten written or you've written yourself into another language, you can get people from that platform to help you with those sorts of things. And of course, there's all kinds of people on the platform who can help with coding and web development. So you just have to use your imagination. If you've got tasks that you're doing and that you just would love to hand off to somebody else because you either don't have time or you hate doing it, or you're just not good at it and it would just be better to get somebody else to do it, then using something like Fiverr is going to be really helpful. But I wanted to share my experience with you so that you've got a few tips and hints about how to go about getting started doing it, because it's pretty easy to get confused and lost on a platform like that, or just end up getting on there, looking around and giving up because you're just not confident that you're going to get the person you need or the outcome that you need. So for me, I had some tasks that I'd been wanting to outsource for quite some time. The first one was I wanted somebody to design a better landing page than the one that I already had for one of the products that I have. And the second one was I wanted to experiment with having my podcast transcripts turned into blog posts. Now, I currently do most of the whole process myself, but that was the one thing that is a gap in my process, is turning the transcripts into blog posts. So I was really curious about the level of quality and how SEO friendly those blog posts would be if I had them done by somebody else. And I wanted to know how long it would take to create them, plus how much would generally cost to get them done. And as I went through that process, I actually ended up inadvertently, or not inadvertently, I was surprised to be offered a really inexpensive service that I hadn't planned on using, where this person generated SEO optimized topics on a certain subject for me, gave me this long list of things that I could write articles about and blog posts about. And it was fairly comprehensive and it didn't cost very much at all. It was done really quickly and it was something that I hadn't expected. So now there's some things, and I'll talk to you in a minute about how that process went. But before you get started, there's some things for you to consider, because if you don't think about these things, they're going to derail you. The first thing is that you need to think about trust. How much trust do you have, or confidence do you have in giving people access to your website or your social media accounts? If you don't feel that you can trust somebody that you've never met, never talked to, or whatever, with your website access or your social media accounts, you're going to really struggle using a platform like this, because you're just not going to feel secure and knowing that they're not going to mess things up. Now, there's a lot of things that Fiverr has in place to make sure that you can trust the people that are there. And I'll talk about those in a little bit, but you do need to have a really good understanding of your own level of trust before you get stuck into something like this. Now, secondly, you have to be willing to train your freelancer to some extent. Now, yes, they're going to know their craft, but they're not mind readers, and you are going to need to give them guidance, and sometimes quite specific guidance about what it is that you want them to do, how you want it to look, and the approach you want them to take. So you need to be prepared to communicate and over communicate what it is that you want them to do. And the third thing is that you're going to need to give them access to any guidelines or policies or standard operating procedures or SOPs that are relevant. So for example, you might need to share your brand guidelines with them so that they know what the rules are in terms of doing some work for you. Okay, now I want to just talk to you a little bit about how I went about the whole process. Now, I had already used Fiverr once before to get some pieces of work done, so I already had an account set up. But if you do need to set up your account, I've got a link for Fiverr here that you can use if you want to. You don't have to, you can go straight to Fiverr and just set it up, but I do have an affiliate link so that if you do sign up using my link, I will get a small commission, which I would be grateful for because it helps me continue to do these podcasts and to work with people that I work with. So the link for that is onlinebusinessliftoff.com/Fiverr-CPA. Now I'm going to spell that for you, the last little bit for you. So it's onlinebusinessliftoff.com/FIVERR-CPA, and that will take you to Fiverr and let you get started with setting up an account there. Now, the second thing that I did when I was ready to go and start looking for somebody was I wrote a really clear brief about what I wanted done for each of those two examples that I gave you, the web page, the landing page redesign, and the blog post from the transcript, those two tasks. I wrote really clear briefs about what I wanted done and what my expectations were in terms of the finished task. And then the next thing I did was that I made it really clear in my own mind what my budget was, because you need to be really clear about what you can afford to pay. Because once you get onto the site and you start looking and trying to decide who you're going to use, the budget range can be really, really, really big. So you need to understand what your maximum is and then what your minimum is in terms of the level of quality that you want, because it's like everything else, you get what you pay for. So if you are going to experiment and use somebody who's new because they don't charge so much, then you need to be prepared to accept slightly lesser quality, a slightly longer time to finish, and for you to spend a lot more time instructing them about what you need. So you just need to be clear about your budget. Now, the next thing I did was that I jumped onto Fiverr and I started searching on Fiverr using keywords that describe the type of task that I wanted done. So for example, for the landing page that I wanted to have rebuilt, I said, rebuild a WordPress landing page. Now, it's important to say that it's a landing page because that's different from a web page in terms of how it's set up. The fact that it's WordPress is important. And the fact that I wanted it rebuilt from an existing page is completely different from building a new one from scratch. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about where that got me, but that was interesting. You need to be really clear. If you don't find what you need straight away, you might have to just change your keywords just a little bit. Now, I also used filters to see if I could find people who were either beginners, which are almost always cheaper, but not always, because they might be really experienced, but they might be new on the Fiverr site. So you just have to weigh that up a little bit. Or somebody who had intermediate or advanced skills. And of course, for me, I decided I wanted somebody who had either intermediate or advanced skills because I wanted to make sure that what I got was really good quality and delivered quickly and that I could use it fairly straight away. So I used my filters to adjust my search so that I only could see people who had the skills that I wanted at the level of experience that I wanted. And then I went through each of the people who turned up on that list and I looked at their reviews. And the things I was looking for was how in depth are those reviews? And this is really important because the freelancers are going to be giving you a rating as well. So if the freelancer is getting a lot of short reviews with not very much detail, that can sometimes mean that they've done mediocre work, but the person giving them the review didn't want to say, hey, that was terrible, I wasn't happy with it, because they might be concerned about what that person might say about them, because not everybody's very good at explaining what they want. And they might have been a horrible person to work with. So the other thing you want to look for is, have people complained? And if they have complained, how did the freelancer respond? Did they try to resolve the issue, or did they just try to defend themselves and blame it all on the purchaser? So you have to look out for those things. Now, once I found the right mix of expertise and experience and price and reviews, I contacted the freelancer by asking them a question. There's a place just there on their profile where you can reach out and ask them a question. And this can be better than going through Fiverr's process, where they show you a standard offer and they want you to click on that standard offer to get the process going. You're far better off to reach out to the person, ask them an intelligent question, and then look to see how responsive they are. And if they're responsive and they answered my question in a timely manner, and they said they could help and do the work by the deadline, I would move to the next step. Now, if they didn't respond, they were immediately, like in a timely manner, I usually would give them a day or a day and a half. If they didn't respond, basically they were out of the running. So usually the freelancer would answer my questions pretty quickly, and then they would ask if they could give me a quote. And I would say, if I liked what they'd said, I liked their response, and I still wanted to just experiment when working with them, then I would say yes, and they would send me a quote. I would look at it. And if it was in the ballpark range for my budget, then I would accept it. And then the real work starts, because then they would come back to me and they would ask whatever questions they needed to in order to start the work. And sometimes they'd come back partway through and ask clarifying questions. So for example, for the person who I got to help me with my landing page, I had to give them access to my website, the back end of my website, so that they could go in there and rebuild the landing page. And then they would ask clarifying questions. I made sure they had my brand guidelines, all the bits that they needed so that they could do a good job. Now, usually or always, there's a deadline that's set for the amount of time that they think it's going to take to do the work. And several times I had people come back to me and ask for an extension. Now, I always said yes, because they had good reasons for asking. And you want people to be able to do a good job for you. So I would personally rather have them have some extra time and do a good job than I would to have them rush the work, come back, give it back to me on time, but then I'm not happy with it. They're not happy with it. And it's just not a good place to be. So once they had finished the work, I would get a message from Fiverr. They would tell Fiverr they were done. Fiverr would send me a message. And then I would have a set period of time to review the work and either accept it or reject it, or I could ask for rework to be done. Now, there was only one occasion where I asked for rework to be done, and that was because the work this person submitted was so bad. It was obvious that they just thrown the information I'd given them into ChatGPT, and they had done nothing more than just give me the very badly formatted results from ChatGPT. And that's not acceptable to me. ChatGPT is good for helping with outlines and ideas and stuff, but it's not good at writing people-friendly articles, I personally don't think. So the work they sent me was incomprehensible. But when I asked them to do the rework, they just said, hey, can I please cancel your order? Can you please cancel your order because I'm too busy? And I personally wasn't very impressed at all. And I will know in the future not to use that person. So for them, it was an ideal way to protect their reputation, because by canceling the order, I didn't end up giving them just a reference. I didn't comment on their work or anything like that, but they just obviously, they thought they were there to make a quick buck and not do good work. So wasn't impressed. But all the other freelancers, and I did work with several, all the other freelancers did really excellent work, and I was happy to accept their work. And once I've accepted it, then that releases the money, which was being held by Fiverr. So I had to pay up front when I submitted the work or accepted the quote. I had to pay up front, and Fiverr holds that money until I've accepted the freelancer's work, and then the freelancer gets paid. And then I would then be asked to provide a review, which I was always happy to do. And I try to write good reviews for people because I know it makes a big difference on a platform like that. And then I download the work if it was a document, or I would publish the landing page. If it was for the landing page, I had to publish the landing page. Now, the final step in the process was to fill out a private survey that Fiverr sent me, asking me what it had really been like to work with that particular freelancer. And that's where I think that the person who did the bad piece of work and who had the job canceled missed out a little bit, because I told Fiverr what I thought about the whole process. I wasn't impressed. But I was also able to say truthfully for the others that they had done a really excellent job. I had enjoyed working with them, and yeah, I would be happy to recommend them in the future. So there you have it. The one thing that I learned the hard way was that when I was asking somebody to help me to rebuild my landing page, I didn't specify that I needed them to do it using Divi. Divi is the theme or the editor that I use for my website. And because I didn't do that, and the first person that I accepted and talked to do my website said, yeah, I can do it. And they had a really great history of doing great work and stuff, except for then I found out that they couldn't use Divi. They used something else. They used Elementor, and they weren't prepared. And obviously there's good reasons why they weren't able to guarantee me that good work by shifting to Divi. So we had to mutually part ways and say, hey, this isn't going to work. Really sorry, I should have put Divi in my explanation, and they were okay with that. So the person who I ended up getting to do the work, I made sure that I specified Divi in my description of what I needed to have done. So I hope that's been helpful. That's basically my experience of outsourcing some tasks that have been sitting around for a very long time that really did need to be done, and using Fiverr as a way of finding people to help me do those tasks. Now, if you've never used Fiverr before and you would like to sign up using my affiliate link, once again, you can go to onlinebusinessliftoff.com/FIVER-CPA. So that's onlinebusinessliftoff.com, Fiverr with 2 R's -CPA. And I hope you have a great week.